Hi, I'm Elisa Ricciuti, Executive Director of the Continuous Social Impact Campus. And today we are talking about business ethics with our faculty member, Professor Guido Palazzo from HEC Lausanne.
Imagine you were asked to make a list of character traits that you would assign to someone who does really bad things. And you would come up with a list of things like greedy person, irresponsible. And then you would be asked to make a list of character traits of yourself. And I'm very sure that these two lists would not overlap much, I hope. Because normally what we do is we attribute bad behavior to character and we believe that we are different. And therefore these two lists should not overlap. But if you look into big scandals, be it in corporations, in NGOs, in governments, what you normally find is that people involved in bad behavior are people like you and me, good people, average people. And then the question is, given that our systems of controlling behavior, like the law, compliance systems, they're designed to keep bad people in check, how can we avoid that good people do bad things? So we have to understand the mechanisms of good people doing bad things. And the answer to the question of why they do it is very simple. A lot of the things we decide every day, a lot of our practices, our behaviors, are routine behaviors, and they come from the context in which we are embedded. So we can less explain what people do by understanding who they are, and more by asking ourselves in what kind of context do they make their decisions. And such context can be so strong that even good people under certain circumstances might do very bad things. So context is stronger than reason. Ethical blindness, in a nutshell, means that once you have started to routinize such bad behaviors, it is very difficult to see that what you do is wrong. So you lose the ability to consciously investigate your own behavior. What you see is a practice that everyone is doing. You think it's normal, it's good, it's even moral. And when you get arrested, you're shocked by yourself. How could I ever do this? That's ethical blindness in a nutshell. One mistake we often make when we look into ethics is that we believe ethical decisions are black and white. They are right against wrong decisions. However, most of the time, decisions are in a gray zone. There are right against right decisions. What does that mean? It means that in a decision where I might have two options, both might make sense to me because both somehow are based on my values. For instance, if you look into the corona crisis, you could create a dilemma between saving lives now and saving the economy in the long run. And there is no ideal solution in such a dilemma. That's why they're called dilemma situations. And in order to solve such dilemma situations, we have to carefully look into consequences. We have to ask ourselves, what are our values, our principles, and we have to make a decision. But knowing that whatever we decide, we might get out of this with dirty hands, as Jean-Paul Sartre called this, because we have to make a compromise on our own values at one point. We have to imagine a decision-making situation of a manager, for instance, as one that is influenced by many factors that come from the context. For instance, who is my leader? How does my leader behave? Is my leader having a kind of aggressive leadership style? This discussion of the tone from the top. Another factor is group conformity. So is what I do something that everyone else around me is doing? Then I ask less questions and it's more easy for me to do it as well, even if it's not ethical or even illegal. Then there might be time pressure. Our brain makes a lot of shortcuts when we are under time pressure. We think less. Incentives, objectives. So is my company giving me objectives that I can never achieve? So each of those factors is maybe in itself harmless, but in combination, they can create so much pressure on people that they would do whatever it takes to survive. So this high pressure in the first step has the impact on people in a way that it creates fear. And in the second step, when we routinize this, we just stop thinking. We act as all the others do. One of the traders in the Enron scandal, which was one of the big scandals in the early 2000s, when he was arrested for doing illegal traits. He said, well, you do it once, it smells. You do it again, it smells less. And I would add, you keep doing it and it stops smelling. So we get routinized into something that is a bad habit, and we are no longer able to see it, to control it, and we are surprised by ourselves when all this comes out. In 2004, Lieberman and colleagues published a paper in which they describe a very simple experiment. They let people play a game, and in this game you can either choose to cooperate or to fight each other. And in one group they called this game Wall Street game. And in another group they called this game Community game. And guess what happened? People in the Wall Street version of the very same game were starting to fight each other, while more people in the community game started to cooperate. The game, again, was the same. It was just the name of the game that changed. So language is never neutral. Language influences how we perceive the world, how we evaluate things, and what we do. And what you find in scandals is very often two very particular language games. One is the language game of war, of fight. The CEO of Lehman Brothers, the company that collapsed in 2008 in the financial crisis, used to tell his people that they should fight against the enemy. And the enemy was not the other companies. The enemy was the team next door. So if you create a kind of Darwinistic struggle among your own people, they might fight with all means they have at their disposition because they believe they are in a war. The second language game that is very dangerous is that of a game. So the trader at Société Générale, Jérôme Kerviel, who lost 5 billion euros in illegal trades for the company, he used to call his computer a Game Boy. If you play a game, it is disconnected from reality, like a war is disconnected from normal reality. In these two language games, you have the impression that you are under special circumstances where rules don't count. So we should be very careful what kind of language we use in a corporation, how we speak to teams, how we motivate people, because the speaking is never innocent. When you look into corporate scandals, what you find is that people inside the companies always build a kind of special construction of reality in which what they do makes total sense to them, and they mutually reconfirm their perception of reality. They tell each other a story. If you look into societies, we have the very same effect. On the societal level, we normally call this narratives. So in particular historical moments, societies are dominated by particular narratives, and these narratives include the values and basic beliefs that guide the behavior of people in that society. Now, the society in which we live, I would call the post-Second World War modern society, had a very particular narrative that was dominated by competition, egoism, maximization, endless growth. And this narrative now in the corona crisis comes to a limit, because we see that in a pandemic, and maybe this is just a test run for much bigger ecological problems to come, we have to collaborate. We have to understand network effects, we have to look into relationships, we have to coordinate behavior. This is very different from the Darwinistic struggle for survival that our market societies had established as a dominating narrative. So I hope that this will be a learning experience for us, and that we will not just learn a lesson for managing this pandemic, but that we will learn a lesson for the ecological transition that we have to organize once this pandemic is over.
Thank you, Guido, for your contribution. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you online.